Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpontificated. And today I want us to engage with a little bit of engage with the program on CBC, Power and Politics, with our friend David Cochran. And they're talking about immigration, a survey that came out by Environics, and we'll check out the episode and have a discussion panel. And I just wanted to kind of engage, and I'll give my points on immigration and just give my opinion on that. In the meantime, hey, check it out. The Blue Jays won. They're on their way to the World Series. Woohoo!
2 outs in the 9th inning. Here in Game 7, and here's Julio Rodriguez. Here comes the 3-2. He got him!
Can't beat that. And other thing that's happening, the ceasefire, the truce between Israel and Gaza doesn't seem to be holding. Oh man, what a mess. But that's the world we're living in. Ukraine, Russia still going on. There's things that have not been spoken about. Sudan in Africa, lots of trouble there. Nigeria, a lot of Muslims attacking Christian churches. The world is a mess. It's really a mess. But here in Canada, we got some of our own problems. And let's take a look at this Environics survey and the discussion that they're having on power and politics on CBC.
Some new polling suggests a pretty dramatic swing in attitudes about immigration here in Canada. The poll from Environics found more than half of Canadians believe the federal government is letting in too many immigrants. That's after a spike in negative sentiments from 2022 to 2024. Before then, most Canadians would say there wasn't too much immigration. There is a huge disparity, though, when you break down the numbers by party, as more than 80% of Conservative supporters say there's too much immigration. That's compared to 40% of Liberal supporters and just 30% of NDP supporters.
Yeah, when I look at this chart, I mean, I am a Conservative, and I would agree that there's too much immigration. And I just want to make the point that this looks like it's a pretty ideological type of survey, in that Liberals and NDP, I mean, if you can see what's happening in the country with the increase in tent cities, the prices of housing, the continued healthcare wait times just increasing. We can't sustain the amount of immigration that the Trudeau government, letting in 1 million people a year for the past 2 or 3 years of their mandate, was just too much, and we saw what was happening in the country as a result. So I think the Conservatives are right, and some of the Liberals, you see 40% Liberal, 30% NDP, and I think it's just obvious. People have to look at the data and stop being ideological. Just look at the data, look at what the excessive immigration has done to Canada, as far as even our GDP per capita is one of the lowest in the G7. So it's just obvious when you look at the data. But sometimes these surveys, people just answer questions based on what they believe, just because they support the government, because they're ideological. And I try not to do that just because I'm a Conservative. If the Conservatives do something wrong, I'm going to say it's wrong. I'm not an ideologue.
Let's bring back the power panel on that. Vandana Cotter is here, so is Kate Harrison, Brad Levine, and Tonda McCharles. Vandana, a lot of this change happened when your former government was increasing immigration numbers post the lockdowns of COVID. The post-secondary system at the provincial level was hungry for students, relying on them for cash. We can see maybe the consequences of those policies. What do you make of these numbers?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I think one, it is the challenges that the government has faced when it comes to immigration, and as you mentioned, in terms of post-secondary institutions and how are they using students, and just the need for temporary foreign workers or companies saying they needed that during COVID. I think there's also, we just look at the culture shift in the United States and how that impacts Canada. And I think it's also, social media. I think social media also shares a lot of misinformation about immigrants. And I see them on reels, I see them sent to me about, look at what's happening, without any real way of finding out, is this true or not, right? So I think those are some key things that are kind of leading this. And I think
But it would be good if Vandana was a little bit more specific about what she was talking about on social media, because I really, sure, social media can do some misinformation and stuff, but I wish she was more specific about what are you talking about there. Because I think most Canadians just see what's happening in their lives. They're seeing the high grocery prices, they're seeing the high housing prices, they're seeing what's helping to wait times and stuff in the health and other social programs. They're seeing them, they're living them. So when you see the social media, like, what are you talking about? People are just dealing with what's affecting their lives. That's what they're doing. So I think that's just a red herring.
when the economy is feeling stressed for a lot of people, people will always worry about their share of the pie. So I think it is natural that people get a little Hobbesian and worried about scarcity and thinking maybe it's not the right time to bring in people when I'm struggling itself.
Kate, it's interesting that when you look at the growing reason why people have a dissatisfaction with immigration and think there's too many people is they place the blame on the system being poorly managed by government, and that has made it harder for jobs, harder for housing, harder in a lot of places. And, I just wonder what your thoughts are on what we're seeing in this data.
Yeah, I think some of those more troubling statistics that you see around, whether or not immigrants contribute to criminal activity or where people are coming from, and some of those more troubling statistics in the report, a lot of that is ultimately rooted in a distrust in the credibility of the system. And that falls pretty squarely on the previous government, who really opened the doors. And, we're now seeing, the Carney administration try to put the puzzle back together. But we had such a consensus in this country for so long around immigration that became broken under the last government. And so even, tinkering with the margins around international students or low-skilled non-permanent residents, that's going to take a while for Canadians to feel that is appearing in their communities, that they're seeing that change when it comes to accessing healthcare or housing. So there's a long game there. And I think what you're seeing, David, in these results is the long tail of a mismanaged system that has caused a lot of Canadians to really question whether or not the government before if they were asleep at the switch, and whether or not the current one is in a position to actually correct a lot of those challenges.
Well, look, if you're working.
Yeah, you do see a lot of, I won't say a lot, but some people do mention that the fact that a lot of the immigrants, people who are coming in, are from India, from the Middle East, some Nigerians as well. So a lot of, so many of the immigrants who are coming in are of the visible minority, as they like to call them, group. And I mean, personally, obviously, I'm a visible minority, and so I have no problem with this as long as people are going to come here and may have a positive impact on the country. People are going to engage in Canadian values, and people are going to. I'm not talking about losing your culture, but we're now in Canada. Become Canadian. I've been here for 40 years. I'm basically Canadian. I've adopted a lot of the Canadian, what's I going to say, cultural norms, such as loving the Toronto Maple Leafs, or cheering for the Blue Jays, those kind of things. When I lived over in Africa, Blue Jays, Maple Leafs, I had no idea. That was Man U, or those kind of things is what I was dealing with. I engaged in. But then, coming into Canada, now it's Man U, and now it's Maple Leafs, Blue Jays, Justin Bieber. Just kidding. But anyway, that's what we want. If you're going to come here, then you've got to engage in Canadian, become Canadian, so to speak. and don't bring some of the troubles that you left over to Canada. And but yes, there are some people who are xenophobic, unfortunately, and noticed these things. They noticed these things, and they're lamenting and talking about those. But I just hope that the government is not necessarily doing that on purpose, because sometimes white guilt is real, and white people doing things to alleviate their guilt by bringing in, say, people of color. And the thing is, most of the people who say, not most, but many of the people who say that there's too much immigrants coming in are people of color. You see that in the States as well, that a lot of the people who are complaining about too much people coming over the southern border were people who came over the southern border themselves, were legally. You see a lot of Mexicans and people from South America, the ones who are saying, there's too many coming over the southern border, because those are the people who are affected by those things. So even here in Canada, a lot of the Indians who have been here for a long period of time are saying that the system is broken, because there are too many who came in at one time over those Trudeau years, and they were the ones who were being affected. So sometimes you need to listen to the people who are being affected, and you'll find that they're actually not. You find that actually other people who are actually part of that group that are coming in, and it's very interesting.
In a college or a university in Canada, you're feeling it now, right? Because a big part of the push for the federal government to allow so many more students come in was funding cuts at provincial levels, tuition freezes, and then them turning to international students for the higher tuition rates they could charge. And now that has been cut off. But Brad, those troubling statistics that Kate mentioned, 36% agree that immigrants increase the level of crime in Canada. Not a majority, but that's not an insignificant share of the population. And 39% believe that the country accepts too many immigrants from racial minority groups. That is, you look at that, some alarm bells go off.
No kidding. Yeah, lots of alarm bells go off. Particularly on those last two stats, and those numbers are up from the last time this issue was pulled by these folks. So we're moving in the wrong direction, and that's a problem. The issue, I think, is and I agree with the comments about that. There's been I think Canadians have been shaken by mismanagement, and not to be overly partisan, but there's no question that when you take a look at the levels of intake that Mark Miller and Justin Trudeau did during Miller's time as immigration minister and Trudeau's time as prime minister, the consensus was based on the fact that immigration is seen as both an economic and a social value to our communities across this country. And then when the intake was such that a lot of people said, we don't have housing, infrastructure, places in K-12 education, we don't have all of the social things for these folks, and they started to, I think, see, even when you mentioned college and university, having in Brampton, just outside of Toronto, having 15, 20 students live in one, apartment house. Just these are not what Canadians want to see their immigration system do. A lot of people took advantage of the system. A lot of these private colleges were cash cows, and the lag is the challenge, right? So there's been, the government says there's been a course correction, but we're not observing the course correction, just like we didn't see the immediate impacts of the intake at the time. Now we're not seeing the impacts of the course correction, and that's going to take some time. And I think the government's got some work to do to educate Canadians on what it is, particularly within the categories, within the variety of streams. Canadians don't debate the merits of the various streams. They just see that the infrastructure can't withstand it. Services aren't there for them. Why is that the case? It's very easy for some politicians to say that's because we took in too many immigrants under Justin Trudeau. I think there's a disservice to the immigrant community. It does also a disservice to the consensus that we had that we have to get back to.
I think that.
I found this story interesting.
It's a typical weekday for Olha Kushko and her family after school, spending time together in their living room. They're one of thousands of families trying to build new lives here in Canada, but are now facing unprecedented processing times that have reached a shocking new high. Ottawa is a world away from Kyiv, where
Look at this unprecedented 50-year processing time. Let's listen to this.
the Kushkos used to live before fleeing the war in Ukraine in 2023.
I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends, classmates, a lot of them died at this war, as well as my mom. She passed away in 2024.
The family applied for permanent residence this summer under Canada's Humanitarian and Compassionate Program. Their youngest son has autism and found great supports at his Ottawa school, and they're ready to settle. But this month, they saw updated processing times posted online that left them stunned.
It doesn't have any sense. I don't know how it's possible. So I can't believe it. I hope that some mistake.
For people like the Kushkos who submitted a humanitarian application recently, the wait time is now more than 10 years. She said it was around 2 years when they first applied. Kushko is not the only one in disbelief.
We hope it's a glitch in the system. My clients are fully panicked, We're shocked. If this is true, if these processing times are accurate, it's shocking.
But the new immigration minister's transition document, published this May, reveals an even darker reality for new applicants, with estimated wait times for the humanitarian stream skyrocketing up to 50 years, and other economic pathways with queues upward of 35, 19, and 9 years.
I mean, that's just as shocking. 50 years, 35 years. So I wonder if Carney has gone way too far the other way, because that's not compassionate to have people wait 50 years to have their case resolved. I mean, so basically they have to either reapply every year, like their visas or whatever reason that they're here. They have to apply every year, or however long their visas or thing is good for, and it may not be allowed, and they have to go back. But living like that, you don't know if it's going to be allowed or not. Living like that is not compassionate. That's not good, guys. So I think Canadians were better than that. Either they're here, process it quickly, and say yes or no quickly. Don't wait people wait. I don't like that idea at all. I think it's not compassionate. It's not the Canadian way. So if we're going to, and I think we do need to get back to, 200,000, 300,000 people a year, where it was more manageable. But then don't bring people over here that make them wait 50 years, 10 years. That's not good.
I think that everybody's made really good points looking back at why we got to where we are now. But, not to be Pollyannish, but I do take some heart in the numbers that were looked at, because at least they've said that 8 in 10 Canadians believe that people born abroad are as likely as native-born Canadians to be good citizens. So that's so that's a majority of Canadians, and I think that it's too easy to say that the consensus is broken. It's under tremendous strain, and I think those numbers are obvious. What it both is an indictment of the past government's sort of rush to open the floodgates and a belated course correction, as Brad points out. But I think it also represents a big challenge for this government to get its immigration game in order, because they have a weak minister in the House of Commons who's getting her lunch eaten every day whenever she gets asked a question. And coming up, we have, I guess the revelation of what the government's plans will be on immigration going forward. We get this every year, right? And so are they going to stick to the Trudeau plan, or will they adjust in any way?
Usually by Halloween, right? Like October 31st.
Exactly. Usually it's like end October, early November. So that's coming up. And I think that it behooves this government to work very hard to make sure that not just the political dialogue around immigration is supportive of the view of immigration as a positive force for our economy and society, but also to get its policy act in order. And I guess, time will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do on immigration. They're letting us know what they're going to do. I mean, right now, if those wait times are correct, and it looks like they're correct, then that really needs to change. That's ridiculous. But certainly the amount of people coming in needs to drop. Hopefully we're going to start seeing the effects of that real soon, because our social programs are being hit hard. They're being stressed out really quite a bit. And so, yeah, so I mean, we're going to have a budget in November. We're going to see what they're going to do in immigration in November. So there's going to be a lot happening. Are we going to have an election in November? I don't think so. I've heard some people think so. But in other words, the budget, if it's a non-confidence vote on the budget, the people say it won't pass. But I think the NDP, even though there's just 7 of them, will be enough to cast to bring the Liberals over the hump to get majority supporting their budget. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Anyway, what do you guys think? Please like and subscribe. I think immigration has got a lot to do. You can't put weak ministers in the immigration file. It's a big file because it affects us all. So let's get that fixed up. Carney, stop traveling around the world and get things done. Because you're doing a lot of talking going on, but I don't know, man. Get it done. Get her done. All right. See you guys next time.